Hi, I'm Billy Keels, the host of the Going Long podcast. Every week, I'm going to be here interviewing the absolute best in the business as it relates to real asset investing, as well as real Main Street investors. We're going to be having conversations where you can listen in, and that's going to help you to continue on your path to education so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in investing long distance. So make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're liking it as well, because that way you can get every single episode as soon as it comes out. And by the way, don't forget to leave today's episode a 5-star review. Let's go ahead and listen to today's conversation. Welcome to the Going Long podcast, where we're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels. And if you've ever wanted to know how pivoting into commercial real estate after 20 years in the corporate world can set you up for freedom, like real freedom, then guess what? This is the conversation that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. I promise, because today's guest is originally from the UK, the United Kingdom, Great Britain. He also began his corporate career in the transactional side as a lawyer for a Wall Street firm that actually took him on assignment, not only to places like California, Menlo Park, but also places like Hong Kong. It's absolutely amazing. He also acted as in-house counsel with a very large pharmaceutical company, and he also served as the chief compliance officer for a Belgian biopharmaceutical company. And today, he is an active investor as well as operator focused on improving lives through investing in multifamily real estate. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation and today's show, Mr. Clive Davis. Clive, welcome to the show, man.
How you doing, Billy? Great to be with you.
You know what, Clive? I am doing fantastic now that you are here, and I'm really looking forward to today's conversation, man. I get inspired by you, and I know so many people are going to learn so much from you today. So, just thank you for investing time with me and the entire Going Long family, man.
Happy to share.
Awesome. So listen, Clive, you know the story. I like to ask everybody the same 5 questions. Gonna maybe ask you to tell your backstory in the middle and then help people to know more about you. But the first 2, we're going to get started with right away. So help us understand, Clive, where do you live in the United States?
So I now live in Atlanta, Georgia. Georgia is the peach state, and that is in the southeast region of the United States. And it may not be right now, but it has been for a few years. The world's busiest airport is in Atlanta, Georgia. So that's where I live in a northern suburb. And I've been here a little over 15 years now.
All right. Fantastic. So the ATL, also known as, and yes, there's a lot going on at, I think it's Hartsfield International Airport. Hartsfield Jackson. There we go. Okay. It's been a while. I've been over here for almost 20 years, which is kind of anyway, we'll talk about that later. So great. So you're in Atlanta. And then also to help us understand, Clive, what is the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
The most positive thing in the last 24 hours is probably something that's happened to someone else, and that someone else is special to me. My oldest child is graduating from college next month, and she sent me a notification yesterday letting me know that she had been bestowed upon her a rather prestigious award. That is still a secret, but by the time this airs, it won't be. So that made my day. And, I just love seeing the kids accomplishing their goals and making things happen.
Wow, man. Don't you? So I love that. So it's the thing that happened to one of your children, and it gives you so much joy to be a part of that and share in that. Oh man. It's phenomenal. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy her day, which is great. So Clive, in the beginning, I mentioned a couple of things, really high level, told your story in the way that I could in a couple seconds, right? But at this point, would love for you to share with the Going Long family. Give us more about your own backstory in your own words. And maybe if you could also share some of the really important decisions that you've made along the way to get to this point in your journey. After that, you and I will pick it up from there, and then we'll take the journey forward. So your backstory, please.
Sure. So I am originally, London is my hometown. So London, England is my hometown. I was born there. and lived there for the first 13 plus years of my life, and before relocating to the US. And so I'm the son of Jamaican immigrants who set out on a sojourn to the UK in the early 60s, which is how I ended up there. And like I said, made that transition to the US. My mom was in pursuit of the American dream, and she had a few kind of glimpses at it, and was headstrong that she was going to move to the US. And so she moved to the US. We followed her and reunited with her, and grew up in New Jersey, which is the US state that I probably considered to be my home state, because that's where I went when we immigrated to the US. Went to school there, went on to go to college in New Jersey, and then later grad school and law school. And so really had an opportunity to attend a great law school, Columbia Law School, in one of the greatest cities in the world, New York City. And, that really opened up a lot of doors and a lot of opportunities for me. I was first college grad in my family, first to go to grad school, first to go to law school, all of that first, kind of blazing trails within my family. Not because I'm the brightest in my family, but because I'm standing on the shoulders of those who came before me. So really just had an opportunity to take advantage of those doors that were open for me. Went to law school, ventured into corporate law, which is something I had no idea what that was before I went to law school. And lo and behold, found myself becoming a corporate transactional lawyer, Wall Street firm, doing some very sophisticated transactions in a world that was very new to me. And so I did that. I stayed in the trenches there for 4+ years. Before transitioning to in-house counsel role with the then largest pharmaceutical company, and I'll mention their name, Pfizer. Very proud of them and what they've contributed to the fight against COVID-19. And got a chance to do a number of different roles with them in-house. And then they eventually relocated me to Atlanta to be the regional attorney for their Southeastern business for the United States. So great experience, great company, great colleagues, great opportunities. Then 2 years in, I shifted lanes and moved into the world of compliance and became a chief compliance officer, as you said earlier, for a Belgian biopharma company headquartered in Brussels. Which gave me an opportunity to spend a good amount of time in Brussels, 3 or 4 times a year. I would be in Brussels, so enjoying Brussels and the chocolates and all that Brussels has to offer. So that's kind of my professional life. I'm married, 4 great kids. As I mentioned earlier, the oldest is graduating next month from my alma mater, Rutgers University. And she's done phenomenally well and is really making us proud. And it's going to continue to make great contributions to her community and our society.
Wow, man. So there's so many different things from son of immigrants, and then being, born in the UK, and then also having another life experience. You talk about being a father of 4. Had multiple opportunities within the professional realm and the corporate realm. And one of the things that I mentioned in the beginning, and if you allow me, I'm also going to make as we talked about the transition, because you're also the managing director of Park Royal Capital. And I know there you have a real focus in terms of real estate investing as well as asset management, a firm that is really focused on both B and C class type of opportunities that are anywhere between 100 to 300 units. And I know that that's really your focus area. But one of the things that I didn't mention, and since you didn't mention, I just want to make sure that everybody does know that, and from a real estate perspective, that is also one of the areas that you are also focused on. And because this is the Going Long podcast, we really like talking about investing beyond your backyard. Once again, we want to help people feel comfortable and confident. And I happen to know that you have invested in 6 different states, which is fantastic. And that's something that we're going to come back to. We're not going to talk about that right now because there's active and
Sure.
there's passive investing and all that stuff. But we're going to come back to that because this is going long. But you mentioned something in the beginning, and I'm just curious as to how it's really helped formulate the way that you view the world. And you talked about your mother leaving Jamaica, going to the UK, and then wanting to also do that to find the American dream, or your parents leaving, Jamaica to go to the UK, and then your mother wanting to go to the US to find that American dream. And when you see your parents have this desire to move towards their dreams and make what some people would see as sacrifices, right? How do you think that has affected you in terms of helping move you in the direction of achieving significance?
So for me, and I've given it more thought over the last few years as I've been on this entrepreneurial commercial real estate investing journey. I think I talk a lot these days about stepping outside of your comfort zone. And whenever you hear the immigrant story, it doesn't matter the locations. When you hear the immigrant story, what you're really hearing is people talking about taking a leap of faith and stepping out of their comfort zone, leaving what they know and in pursuit of a dream, of a possibility without any guarantees. And so for me, when you decide to make that shift and transition from corporate life, and I did 20 years in that world, when you decide to make that shift and transition, you're leaving your comfort zone in pursuit of something, this entrepreneurial pursuit, which, as you know, Billy, that there are no guarantees. It's kind of eat what you kill. There's no guaranteed income. There's no guaranteed success. There's no guaranteed anything. And so for me, what I've kind of learned, and I think more about these days in terms of my parents' journey as immigrants, is if you want it, you've got to go get it. And you've got to be willing to make sacrifices, take risk, and most of all, again, leave your comfort zone. And so that's what I talk a lot about these days, probably more so than my kids want to hear about, but that's kind of what I've been on for a good amount of time now.
And Clive, is that so? Because you're right, you're on this, and you've been on a good amount of time. You've been reflecting on this because you do have to make that move. And I mean, it's kind of ironic, right? Because you are a gentleman from the UK who's now living in the US, and I'm a guy who's from the US now living in Europe. And so, to some degree, whether it was by family choice or by accident or whatever, we're kind of now personifying exactly what you talked about. And so is this something that you've always been aware of, or is this something that you've just, like, in the last, say, 5-10 years, it's really come to the forefront of your mind?
I think I've always been aware of it, but it hasn't been as relevant or as important to me as it has become in the last 4 or 5 years. And stepping away from corporate life as I did at the end of 2016 now, I'm in a different space and I have more time to focus on things that, frankly, when you're in the rat race, you really don't have time to stop and pause and contemplate. And so I have more of that time, which is part of the freedom that you mentioned earlier. And, it's things like that you can sit back and say, wow, my father, at 35, just decided he was going to go to another country. He landed in the UK, got introduced to this thing called snow, which he had never seen or experienced before, and wasn't dressed appropriately. It was, a leap of faith. He mentioned to me that he planned on being in London for about 5 years, get rich and return to Jamaica. He actually didn't return to Jamaica until the mid-'80s. And so he spent 25 years outside of his country of birth, making a life and, building a life for us and for the family.
Okay. All right. Perfect. I appreciate you clarifying that as well. So your father went there. And I think about that also too, because my kids, like, I came here from the US and Their mother and I met in France, and so they'll have these kind of stories. They can say, "My dad came over here," and stuff like that. So I love that. You made me think of something else as well earlier, Clive, because like one of the things that you mentioned that resonated a lot with me when you were telling your story is you talked about the pharmaceutical company that you worked for, and I'll say their name because you said it, right? That you worked for Pfizer. And I'd noticed that there was a positivity about the way that you talked about that. And there's so many people that we're surrounded by nowadays, and I'm going to just say it, you hate your job and you got to get out of your job and you want to quit your job because you hate it and you want to move to become an entrepreneur, right? I don't buy into that because that's not my thing. Like I enjoy the big corporate that I work for. And before we talk about your transition, maybe if you could tell us just a little bit about that experience for you and working in the multinational, because I get a sense that it was a positive experience for you. Maybe you could talk about what that experience was like. And also, what are some of the skills that you learned in that multinational that are serving you and your investors and your end clients well today?
Yeah, so definitely. I'll get into that. I'll touch briefly on kind of my corporate life in the firm right before I transitioned to Pfizer, because that was eye-opening and a great experience that I can look back on, regardless of the amount of hours that I was doing in any given week. That's not what I tend to think about when I look back on that experience. I think about the opportunity to go and spend to move to Hong Kong and live in Hong Kong with my then wife and the oldest child that I mentioned to you was just a toddler at the time. But to be able to leave New York City, go to Hong Kong and do the very same work, corporate transactional work, but do it in a very different environment, different culture. I had, at that point, had never been to Asia before. And so, that opened up opportunities, doing transactions in Seoul, Korea. So I got to travel from Hong Kong to Seoul again, and never been there before. So this eye-opening experiences. The skill set of being a corporate transactional lawyer is something that I leverage and utilize on a daily basis. So then transition into a place like Pfizer, a blue chip company, Fortune 100 company, at the time, biggest pharmaceutical company, that opened the doors to me kind of learning a whole new industry that I had no exposure to, had no awareness or understanding or appreciation for, really. So that really opened up doors. And that was kind of how I cut my teeth in terms of, this is what corporate America is. And I'm in the heart of one of, the blue chips of this corporate American life. And so, team building. And so something that, so simple as that, team building. What is team building? Those are things that you kind of hear about. And now I was starting to see how people kind of strategically and scientifically kind of worked on developing these things and marketing and branding and all of these things that are just part of day-to-day life in corporate America, until you kind of get that firsthand insider glimpse at it. You don't really have that true appreciation for the level of sophistication, the level of investment, and the level of strategy that goes into all of that results in whatever the product is that is coming off the assembly line. I had great opportunities to work in. I wasn't a specialist, so I was probably more so of a generalist. So I got to work in many different areas of the company. Whether it was customs, whether it was strategic advising to their investment group that would invest in other technologies and other companies. So again, just broad-based experience. And really that's where I really got a chance to cut my teeth and learn the ropes of navigating corporate life, and not only an American company, but a global company with a footprint across the globe, which, gave me an opportunity to travel and to go to places like Brussels and Cork Island, that I had never heard of, let alone been to. And so, just a really great experience that I was afforded.
And so it's fantastic to hear you talk about the not just the role but the experiences, right? Being able to travel and going to places with your family like Hong Kong, or being able to work on transactions in Seoul, Korea, which you'd not probably even thought about going there, and even going to places like Cork. And along the way, you're able to share those experiences with your family, so that you're also expanding the horizons of what is understood as the norm for your children, right? I mean, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, so I'd never thought I was going to leave Columbus, Ohio. And now my children have been to 4 or 5 countries, and they just, they speak 3 languages, and they're doing things that for them are normal. And I had to learn different languages at 27, but they've grown up with 3, right? In very similar way that you've been able to provide those experiences for your family while working at, whilst working at a multinational, right? And so and I wanted to stop there because it just, when I heard you talk about it, I just get the feeling that you still see it as a positive experience overall.
Definitely. So I don't look back with any regrets about my time spent in corporate life. But for kind of that journey, I wouldn't be where I'm sitting today. And so you'll look back and you'll say, man, I was doing 80 hours a week, and I wasn't guaranteed a weekend, or I could get a call last minute that says cancel your weekend plans, or what have you, or we need you on a plane to DC to go do some due diligence here, or whatever the case may be. Yep. Those aren't the highlights. I tend to focus on, I guess my glass is half full, so I tend to focus on the opportunities that I was afforded. And but for those experiences, whether it's law school or the law firm or Pfizer or the other places that I've been, I wouldn't be where I am today. So from my standpoint, it would be foolish for me to kind of look back and have any regrets about that. By and large, it was a positive experience that I'm still benefiting from today.
All right. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I do want to pivot a little bit and recognize that, you understand that, or from your perspective, it was something that in the overall was a positive experience. And at the same time, you got into this like tangible asset investing or real estate investing. And you've done it in, like I said, 6 different states and multiple different kind of ways when you got started doing it passively. Yeah. So the question for me is like, do you come from a family that was already involved in real estate? And if not, like how in the world did you even get involved in real estate? How did that get started?
Yeah, so I wouldn't describe. So I come from humble beginnings, real modest background. Neither of my parents attended even high school. And so I didn't have kind of anyone kind of setting an example for me in terms of just even at a high level investment. That was not something that I saw growing up. What I saw is 2 parents working hard, usually 2 shifts or 16 hours a day, providing for us, meeting our needs. But the concept of having disposable income that they could take and invest was something foreign to them and foreign to me, and something I didn't have an opportunity to observe. And so that again, time in corporate America gave me exposure to see a wide variety of people and their backgrounds and what they're doing, and listening to and watching and seeing, what they're doing with their disposable income. And so my first exposure to real estate, while my parents did have a rental property actually in Queens, New York. And so I would travel from New Jersey to Queens, probably an hour drive with my father, and he would be doing some wallpapering or some painting or sprucing up something in connection with a tenant moving out or moving in or something of that kind. And so I saw that early on. And so that was something that probably had a greater influence on me than I even appreciated at the time as a 14, 15-year-old kid. But my first real estate investments were early in my corporate life, I bought a duplex property down in Florida, where my parents at the time had retired in the mid 90s. So I bought a duplex in 1999, so 22 years ago. And I basically set up a checking account. I had the rents going into that checking account, and I had both my parents' names listed on the account. And that was effectively how I was able to get cash to them when they needed it. So I said, you don't need to ask me. Here's this checking account. The rents from the duplex are going into it, and go at it. And so that was my
Sorry, Clive. So you were living in New Jersey at the time, and you purchased your first property in Florida. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah. So 1999. So I was living in New York City, purchased the duplex in Florida. And so that was my first investment was in out of state and New York. If you know New York, Florida, I mean, you've got to fly there, or you've got almost a day's drive if you're going to try and do that, which I have done. But you'd be better off flying.
I love that.
So I had no fear of investing out of state. It was right off the bat. I know this city, Cape Coral, Florida. My folks are there. Duplexes and multifamily units are prevalent there. And so I've got disposable funds. What better way to put it to use? I've seen my parents do this rental thing, seem to be okay for them. And, I've got them, kind of in the area if I need anyone to call upon.
So I love that. And my story, I'm living in Barcelona, ended up investing back in the US based on where my family was, or part of my family was. And so my thought process was, I have money. If things get really messed up, at least I can pick up the phone and say, hey, listen, can you all go bail me out of this situation? I didn't have much more thought in my process in terms of how I was purchasing it. It was like, this is how much it cost. I have this much money and family members are there. Cool. I'm going to buy it and get started. And so I love that your very first property is what I like to call is a long distance story, right? It is because you couldn't go see, it was beyond your backyard and you were comfortable, you were confident, and you did it. That was one state. But I mentioned before that you'd invested in 6 different states passively. And so talk to us a little bit about what that process was for you, because we're always told, Clive, just invest in your backyard. That's where you're going to go. And this is what's going to happen. And it's easier, so you can go by and you can fix this and you can fix that. But you made a conscious decision to make your first acquisition out of state, long distance. And then you invested with others that were in other states that were not the state that you were living in. Why even do that?
So one of the other benefits of being in corporate America is you see that good corporations that are trying to grow and expand, they don't limit themselves to opportunities that are in their immediate circumference. They go wherever they can be successful and make money. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. And they want to communicate their messages. They want to send their products all over the world. And that is success for them. So for me, the idea of only looking kind of in my immediate area where I live, sure, there are opportunities where I live and have lived in many different places. But to think that the best opportunities are there, or that the good opportunities are restricted to my area, for me, is just short-sighted. So when I left corporate life, that's when I really put my foot on the gas pedal and started intensifying my pursuit of commercial real estate with a focus on multifamily. And I said, look, wherever I hear about or learn about deals or opportunities, doesn't matter to me where they are, because I'm going to be a limited partner. I'm going to be investing passively. And so it doesn't really matter where they are. So I've invested in California. I've invested in, stabilized multifamily opportunities, the typical value add multifamily where the operator is going to go in, they're going to freshen up units, improve the amenities, things of that nature, make the experience better for residents. And in return for that, they're going to, push rents. They're going to try and improve operational efficiencies and what have you, and deliver a return to their investors. So I've invested, I think, in probably 4 or 5 deals in California. I've invested in San Francisco in a ground up development of micro units that are probably about 380 square feet in size. So a novel type of investment that is trying to contribute to bring in workforce housing to San Francisco. If you know anything about San Francisco, they, like many US cities, are starved for workforce housing. And so you often hear that it's too expensive to develop workforce housing. So I was able to get into a project that is doing just that. And that's a long-term 10-year project, 10-year projected hold. So I can invest in something that I believe in that is also going to deliver a return to me. So very early on, I was like, go wherever the good deals are. And I was not naive or I never had to be disabused of the idea that the best investments are in your backyard.
And so I love the fact that you already, so from the corporate perspective, you recognize that many corporates go where the opportunities are and they create those opportunities because they're typically not just in one location, especially those that are looking to go and move at scale. And so as you also started looking at investing with and through other people in other states, maybe you could talk to us a little bit, Clive, because at that point you're relinquishing a portion of the control to someone else. Right. And so as you do that, it's really about making sure that you understand. And I guess what we like to talk about here is after you understand personally what you want to do and you're in the right location, the third part of the puzzle is the team. So what was the kind of your, how do you, or how were you vetting or just verifying that the team that you were going to place whatever amount of capital that you were going to do were going to be able to deliver on the promise that they were making to you?
Yeah, so a good number of the investments that I made passively early on were made through a crowd sourced platform. And I'm not going to mention the name, but there are many of them. So I did my due diligence, kind of learned about this particular platform and saw that they have opportunities that they make available. That particular platform only offers opportunities to what are called accredited investors. And accredited investors, for those of your audience who aren't familiar with that term, effectively, these are high income earners who in the US are making $200,000 a year for the last 2 years with an expectation of making about the same in the current year. Or the other way that you can be deemed an accredited investor is if you have a net worth of $1 million when it's all said and done, assets, liabilities, add it all up, and your net worth is $1 million. So qualify either of those ways, you're an accredited investor. So this particular platform that I invested in or through offers opportunities, commercial real estate opportunities to accredited investors to invest in. So I did my background and due diligence on them, and to a large degree, was relying on their vetting process of sponsors and teams. And then you get a chance to analyze the particular deal in front of you. You get an opportunity to interface and ask questions of the sponsorship team, as well as reviewing the documents and materials and what have you. So it's the deal. It's where is the deal? What type of deal is it? And then the team that is going to be implementing that business plan and executing on that.
Okay, and so as you're looking at how they're executing, the team is executing on the business plan or plans to execute against the business plan. Then you look at the specific opportunity. What type of benefits is it looking to provide you? Maybe it's cash flow, maybe it's appreciation over time, maybe it's some type of equity buildup, or it could be a number of different things, right? People want tax benefits. I know a lot of people that need lots of tax benefits because they're W-2 wage earners, and so there's kind of only so much you can do there. I think there is one other thing that they just came up with as well that you can do. You can become an accredited investor if you pass some kind of a test, but you can look that up as well. And I guess I'm just curious also too, I think you mentioned it before, but has every single one of the opportunities that you've placed capital on, has every single one of them been a home run? Or have any, or maybe let me say it the other way. Sorry, that was, I got it. That was, have any of them not worked according to plan?
Absolutely. And to clarify, I've done probably a dozen or so of these kind of passive investments, and I can tell you one in particular is currently the subject of litigation, and an SEC investigation and criminal action. And so that investment has absolutely not gone according to plan. And in all likelihood, there will be a substantial loss of principal to me and everyone else who invested in that opportunity. So that's one end of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. And then I've had deals that have gone full cycle and have gone according to plan and have been pretty much in line with the projections that they kind of sold us on when we had the opportunity to decide whether we were going to invest. So I've had both. I've had that went well, and I've also had that was pretty much a disaster. So you've got to be prepared for that whenever you make an investment, because there are no guarantees, and you hope as time goes on you become a more astute investor. But when you're putting capital at risk, it's just that. It is at risk. And you need to know that, and you need to be prepared for that possibility. Now, hopefully that's an outlier in my investing career and lifetime, but it can happen.
Yeah. And Clive, one of the things that's really important as you talk to us about it, right? I mean, whether it's an outlier or not, it's something that happened to you. And the fact that you're able to share with the entire Going Long family is one of the things that not every single deal will pencil out, will work out as anticipated. I guess, would you say that it's fair to say it's not that they didn't pencil out, but it's how what happened as a result, like what was the communication or lack thereof, which is really what makes the biggest difference or the biggest impact. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. And so as I've kind of now, we talk about, as I've now started to make the transition into active investor who will be bringing these types of opportunities to friends, families, and others, I think about what kind of operator, what kind of sponsor do I want to be? And so I can look across the passive investments on that spectrum that I mentioned, and I can look and see the good, the bad, the ugly, and what do I want to take into my investing life. And so communication, you hear it all the time. It's cliche. Communication is key, whether it's a marriage, whether it's an investor and a sponsor. The better and stronger your communication, doesn't even matter. Even if the news isn't always the news that you want to hear, the fact that someone values you enough to be purposeful and intentional with their communications, that for me is a differentiator as a sponsor. And so that's who I hope to be and think that I am in terms of my communications. And so, you learn the good and the bad.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And yes, being able to learn the good, the bad, to take from those experiences. And as you are moving forward as a general partner and sponsor, it also is allowing you and helping you to understand exactly the type of general partner that you are. And speaking of which, Clive, before we get into our Going Long final three, I know one of the things I mentioned before, talked about you as managing director at Park Royal Capital. Help us understand, who is the person that you as a managing director of Park Royal Capital is looking to serve? Maybe if you can describe who that person is that you want to be able to serve with your company, that would help all of us here at the Going Long family understand.
Yeah, so in some respects, it's somewhat self-serving, because I think back and look back at myself as a younger Clive in corporate America, someone who was blessed to be a high-income earner, worked a lot of hours, didn't necessarily have much time to focus on, investing. And more of my investing at that time was, okay, put a certain amount of money here until you reach a cap. And then that's kind of, let that money roll. And some folks on Wall Street are going to do their magic with it for you and supposedly, deliver a return. So I'm really looking to serve that busy corporate individual. Don't have to be corporate. Anyone, you may be a sole entrepreneur heavily invested in your business, growing your business. But at the end of the day, you have some disposable income that you're looking to invest, and you want to diversify your investments. So you don't want all of your money in the stock market. You're probably going to continue to have some money in that space, but you also want to look at opportunities in commercial real estate. And for me, specifically, multifamily is the area of focus. So someone who's willing to, invest with me and go on a journey for 3, 4, 5 years, and hopefully have solid returns delivered to them. That's the type of person that I'm looking to serve. And someone who doesn't have that firsthand experience and exposure to real estate in the way that I've had an opportunity to get involved.
So that's really helpful. Helps us to understand, the person that you are looking to serve, the person that you are wanting to attract. And we have a lot of people here that are high wage earners and are very, very busy, extremely busy. We've got business owners and things like that. So knowing that your organization is working to be able to deliver on those types of promises, and also wanting to get to know more about you, Clive Davis, and the things that you have been exposed to, the great experience that you have in terms of being able to now add value to others, as you once again are continuing to pivot and move forward and add value as a general partner. So I think that's fantastic. And thank you very much for giving us that clarity in terms of who you're looking to serve. The thing is though, Clive, I can't believe we've spoken so long, but this is kind of like at a certain point, we've got to get to the going long final 3. And the thing is, I never ask anybody about the going long final 3 unless they tell me that they're ready. So are you ready?
100% ready.
I knew you would be. You were born ready, man. So here we go. So we started with you on your side of the pond, your new side of the pond. And now I'd like to bring it back to my new side of the pond, which is over here in Europe. So help us understand, what is your favorite European city, either that you've visited or are still on your bucket list to visit?
So I'm obviously biased towards London, which is the hometown, but I'm not going to pick London. I've spent a lot of time in Brussels. I'm not going to pick Brussels. I'm going to pick somewhere that I have not been that is on the bucket list. And so believe it or not, I've not been to Italy before. So Rome is on the bucket list as a place that I want to go and experience and hopefully can take the family at some point in time. I'll travel all over, but Rome is a particular destination that I am destined for.
Well, let me know before you head over there. We've got some family members over there and stuff like that. So, and I've spent there. I used to live in Italy, but not in Rome, but love that city. So awesome. So great. Great. Another vote for Rome. Second of the going long final 3. And here's the thing, Clive, you are a very successful person in many aspects of your life. And one of the things that I've always noticed about people that are very successful is very successful people have typically only made one mistake during their entire trajectory, no matter what they've okay. I get that wrong every time. Maybe you've probably made more than one mistake, or maybe multiple mistakes, or many learning opportunities, or whatever you want to say, however you want to call it. But the thing is, what I have really noticed about those successful people is that not afraid of making mistakes, learning opportunities, and most importantly, it's what are the lessons that they learn and apply very quickly after making those mistakes. So if you could just think of one thing that you'd quickly like to share with us to help us understand that lesson that you'd like to share with the Going Long family.
Yeah, so having spent almost 20 years in the pharmaceutical world, you know that success is the foundation for success is repeated failure. So you don't get to the successful breakthroughs like the vaccines for COVID-19 unless you have lots and lots of failures before you have that breakthrough. And so I apply that to my life 100%. The mistake, if it is a mistake that I would say that I kind of look back on, is thinking that as a corporate professional that I couldn't, I had to devote 100% of my time to that component or that aspect of myself. And I didn't necessarily invest in myself as a non-corporate citizen. And so I wish I had done more in parallel earlier in my corporate life, because it was 100% possible, but I didn't necessarily look outside of that comfort zone or explore outside of that space to know that these things are happening that I could be doing in parallel track. You don't have to wait until you've done 20 years in corporate life before you start venturing into these other areas. For me, it's an entrepreneurial journey into real estate. I could have started doing that certainly passively much sooner. And I could also have done some things actively, even while being a gainfully employed corporate citizen. So that would be the one thing that I would say I wish I had done a little bit differently or had accelerated kind of my pivot.
Fantastic. So appreciate you sharing that, just to help remind everyone that there is life outside of corporate, and you can invest in yourself and your ventures, which I think is fantastic, and being able to do that in a way that makes sense for your potential eventual transition or not. Right. I think it's a great piece of platinum, not gold, platinum lesson. So thank you for sharing that. And then lastly, and then we're going to take it home. Yes, Clive, we always like to finish by feeding the brain. So tell us, what book would you recommend to the Going Long family?
So I'm going to take the liberty and give you two books. So one is Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. Recently, within the last year or two, it came out as a movie of the same name, Just Mercy. And it was starred by Michael B. Jordan. You may know from Black Panther and many other movies, Creed and what have you. So powerful, powerful book, gives you some great insight into the U.S. justice system. And the lawyer that is portrayed is just a phenomenal story of someone who came from humble beginnings, ended up at Harvard Law, and then dedicated his life to really fighting for people who have been wrongfully imprisoned and on death row. So that's one. The other one that I haven't heard on a lot of podcasts, but was valuable to me in my real estate journey, is The Complete Guide to Buying and Selling Apartment Buildings. And that's by Steve Burgess, Berges, Steve Burgess. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Steve Burgess and Just Mercy. So we will, we're going to, since you took Just Mercy first, we're going to take that one and make sure that we get it in. And then I'm sure we can probably figure out a way to make sure that both books are in there, but we'll make sure that Just Mercy, because that was your first one, is there. So, man, this has just been fantastic, Clive. I knew it was going to be an awesome conversation. I knew it was going to be full of value added and full of opportunities to help others, especially those busy professionals, whether they are working in a corporate role, their own have their own business, or whatever the case may be. But really busy people that are also looking for nuggets to how they can continue to move forward faster, making sure that their capital is constantly working for them. We think about just as you mentioned to us before, 13 in London, and then with your family, being able to leave there and head to the States and be able to chase this dream and see the example that your parents put by being able sometimes to work two shifts to be able to make sure that you were able to move forward. You then went on into New Jersey and had multiple degrees in your JD at Columbia in New York, which is a phenomenal city. And then as a father of four, has spent 20 years in the corporate role, been able to pivot, and now are taking all those lessons that you learned as a passive investor, and you are continuing to look to add value to others in those B and C class type of properties between 100 and 300 doors, by doing that and getting to know each individual along the way and adding value to them. Your story is amazing. I know so many people have been listening and have been watching us on the video and thinking, Billy, just get to the point, man. How can I find out more about Clive? I want to get in touch with this guy. I want to find out more about what he's doing at Park Royal Capital, et cetera, et cetera. So help us understand, what is the best way for the Going Long family to get in touch with you, Clive, and find out more about you and what you're doing at Park Royal Capital?
Absolutely. So I love talking all things real estate. So I welcome anyone reaching out to me. And the best way to get a hold of me, there are a few ways. Email, you can email me directly at Clive, that's CLIVE at parkroyalcapital.com. Clive at parkroyalcapital.com is the email. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, so you can look me up on both those platforms. I'm pretty active on both platforms and pretty responsive. So you reach out to me, you're probably going to hear back from me within a day or two. And so I pride myself on good communication, and part of good communication is responding.
Yes.
So yeah.
So let me just add one thing. So you're not pretty good at responding. You're awesome at responding. So as Clive says, on LinkedIn and both Facebook, he is phenomenal about being able to be in touch. So sorry, I just wanted to add that because you're a bit modest on that point. So, but yes, also to Clive at parkroyalcapital.com. And we're going to include that in the show notes for everyone as well. So if you're running on the treadmill or you're cooking dinner or something like that, don't worry. We'll get it all taken care of for you. So, I guess the thing is, Clive, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate you taking the time, investing your time, your energy, your expertise with me and the entire Going Long family. Thank you very much.
I appreciate the opportunity. I want to thank you for having me, Billy. This is really, it's one thing to listen to podcasts that you admire and you get a lot of value out of. And it's a whole nother thing to actually be a guest and have the opportunity to share your experience with others. So I hope your audience, found something, even if it's one nugget or two of value. And I'm looking forward to folks reaching out and making new connections.
All right. Fantastic. Well, I'm sure that's going to definitely happen. So if you allow me, Clive, just a couple seconds, I just want to say thank you to the entire Going Long family. Listen, you had an opportunity once again today. Clive left so much of his experience, so many golden nuggets to really help you as you're on your journey. And so, as you receive so much value, take the opportunity today to share today's conversation with 2 to 3 of your friends, right? Just takes a couple seconds, just forward and share today's conversation. They're going to get a lot of value out of what Clive was talking about today, help them along their journey. And you're also attracting other like-minded people to the Going Long family. So take that action today. It's phenomenal to be able to do that. Be that person that others look as the person of influence. And also too, if you're thinking about leaving a review, just go ahead, just take a couple seconds, leave the honest review, what you thought about today's conversation, what you want to hear more of, what you'd like to see more of, because I go through every single one of the reviews. And it's one of the things that we're continuing to do to make sure that this podcast is giving you the value that you're looking for. And so I know that whatever you're doing, you're busy. And I'm really looking forward to welcoming you back on the very next conversation, the very next episode. And until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much.
Wow, don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? When I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long-distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.